My name is Samira. I run Amali Consulting, which is a PR and marketing agency based out of London and LA. We help companies and startups connect with the audiences that they want to reach through partnerships, PR strategy, marketing campaigns that tap into and push culture forward so that a brand's customers can become loyal brand communities. And we work across fashion, music, tech, art, and social enterprise, and we find a way to merge all those industries together. So Janet is our business coach. We love her. We've been working together for a few months now, and she's helped us hit some pretty awesome goals, which include hiring. Fatima, who's on this call, is going to be leading our session next week. She just waved hi. We've hit some great financial goals over the past few months, and we've been able to pivot our business in this weird Corona time, which has kept us thriving. So yeah, it's been a swift learning. But I'll hand over to Janet, make sure that everyone's got a pen and paper, and yeah, we'll start cracking.
We're going to do this really quick and dirty because we only got 30 minutes. Oftentimes we spend whole days with groups of people and companies, and we're going to try to do what we do in 30 minutes. I just want to introduce Amanda, who is joining me on the call for absolutely free. She's an incredibly talented coach. Amanda, say hi.
Hello.
Amanda is another great coach in our firm. We are executive coaches at Novus Global. And we got JD from Charlotte. Yeah, feel free to use the chat. I'm going to try to make this as participatory as I can, but because we have a short amount of time, we're going to be dumping a lot of info on you. So welcome back to those who were here last week. What did we talk about last week? Ooh, Hannah, the tension between grief and growth. Yes, we talked about that. Vision. It's cheating, I saw. Great.
Now, the tension between growth and fear.
Growth and fear. Yep. Great. So that's the first step, is to create a vision. I asked you guys some questions to be thinking about. Yep. We talked about how to relate to the gap, Fatima, around what your vision is. So hopefully you have at least a first draft of your vision of what you want. Vision is basically, what do you want? What do you want from this time? What's your vision for this time during COVID? What's your vision for your generosity, for your leadership, for your business, for any of your goals? So today we're going to talk about one of the most important ingredients that's going to help you get to where you want to go, and that's going to help you get more done in less time. And so quick show of hands for those who are on video, or you can put in the chat, how many of you are interested in getting more done in less time? If you're not, oh, that's if you're not a problem. Okay, Samir said me. So integrity is going to be the key to this. So when we work with companies, we talk about integrity a lot, and our definition of integrity is basically, and let me see if this will work. Why does this not let me do this? This is the first time I'm doing this way. Integrity, doing what you say you're going to do. So we're not moralizing what integrity is. It's not about being a good person. It's literally, the definition is just doing what you say you're going to do. Now, how many of you have noticed during a time like this, a time of crisis, a time of rapid change, how much easier it is to let yourself off the hook? Or maybe you've noticed other people in your world, people in your community, friends, parents, family. It can be an easy time when things are going crazy, there's crisis, there's challenges, to let yourself off the hook. So oftentimes I'll draw a big hook on the board and say, how many of you have ever thought to yourself, oh, I'm going to let this person off the hook because I hope they let me off the hook next time, right? You've been late to something, or someone has been late to a meeting and you said, no problem, right? Because there's a part of you that hopes that the next time that they let you off the hook, right? So increasing levels of integrity is going to help us get more done in less time. Now, everyone on this call has some integrity. So it's not a matter of you have it or you don't, but think of it a little bit more like a volume dial. You just want to increase the levels of doing what you say you're going to do. This is one of my favorite. Why is it looking like that? Do it this way. There we go. This is one of my favorite quotes about integrity. I would invite you to either write this down or take a screenshot, because this is going to be important. Every time you break a commitment to yourself, you fracture your own confidence that you could ever fulfill a commitment in the future. If you've ever made a New Year's resolution, like let's pretend your New Year's resolution is, I'm not going to eat any junk food for 2020. And then it's January 5th and you go to In-N-Out. And then on January 6th, how much easier it is to go when someone asks, hey, do you want to go to Chick-fil-A? Well, I guess I already broke my commitment yesterday, so it's not going to matter, right? So this is really important for creating momentum. So put this here. What I would love in the chat is to hear your vision. If you weren't here last week, not a problem. I would just like to hear at least one, we'll call it goal for the sake of time. Yeah, what's one thing you would like to accomplish in the next month? This is called the funnel of specificity. Up here you got vague. Down here you got specific. So I would love everyone to take their commitment. So Julius, for example, launch online sales for my business. This is a great one. I like that one. Launch online sales for my business. So let's take that and push it down the funnel. So if you launched your online sales for my business, you can put it in the chat if you want. How would I know? Like if I called you up, Julius, on May 15th and said, did that happen? How would I know that happened? So I'd love everyone. Some of these are a little more specific than others. Some of them are a little more vague. Vague is a great place to start, by the way. Vague is not bad, but we want to, the reason I want us to get curious and go from vague to specific is vague tends to be the place that most of us want to go because we get to avoid the work of getting specific. So Amanda, do you have any thoughts on vague versus specific that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think I appreciate you saying it's not that one, like to moralize it, that one is bad or worse. There absolutely, I think, is a place for vague. Like oftentimes I'll have vaguer visions that are more umbrella, like way of being type visions that like as a leader or as a mom or this is a human I want to anchor into. So I think with vague, then that can apply to a variety of situations. But then it's taking that vague and then moving it down the funnel to get to very specific outcomes that then become tangible to where I know if I hit them, I know that I didn't. Because it's kind of like, we'll use the examples like, I want to make more money. Like, great, here's $1. Congratulations, you just made more. It's like, so how much more? Or I want to have a better marriage. I'm not quite sure what that means. What would be the specific results that would be happening if you had the marriage of your dreams?
Yep. Yeah, that's great. So for example, Hannah, a great one that you wrote down, create deep, meaningful relationships. If we put that down the funnel, what would that be for you? How would I know in a month that you created deep, meaningful relationships? And maybe that means you connected with someone once a week on a regular basis before then. Maybe that means someone let you know that they really appreciated your friendship. How would you know? And this is where it gets a little bit, this should feel a little bit like lifting the weights, because oftentimes, and I kind of want to read Julie's. So we're creating our brand of coffee, so need to finish tasting and make final decision on our blend, completing packaging, updating website with new product and subscription model before being in. Love it. So now we're getting down the funnel. That's great. Love the umbrella visual. I often feel like I have to give things up to be more specific. Yep. Yeah. I use the umbrella vision often with clients as, hey, like for me, like I'd love to be a world-class coach, right? That's my umbrella vision. That's kind of the vision that pulls me into growing. But what does that mean? How will I know that I'm a world-class coach? What's the specifics? What's the measurables that will tell me that that's happening? And it could change. You could course correct. Maybe that means that I reach a certain number of people. Maybe that means that I write a book. Maybe that means I have a certain level of impact that could be quantifiable.
It could be the number of clients you have. It could be the amount of your current rates that you're charging. Oftentimes I think I look at my umbrella vision as an anchor for me, like it's an umbrella and it's an anchor. And then how would that be manifested in the physical universe if that was happening?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So notice the tension that you feel inside as you get more specific. So for example, if I say I want to make more money versus I want $1,200 in my emergency fund by May 15th. One might give me, if I choose to relate to that way, one might give me a little bit more anxiety or maybe even excitement, like, okay, how the heck am I going to do that? And so you want to notice the tension of being specific. Notice the resistance to wanting to say a number or wanting to say a specific. There are lots of fun ways to measure your commitment. So have it written down. If you didn't put in the chat, not a problem. On your notes, go ahead and write down what is your measurable goal for May 15th. So now that you have that, we're going to work backwards a bit. And again, we have 30 minutes, so I'm going really fast. But overall, like when I'm working with Samira, we're going to start with 12 months. Right? We're going to start with what are the 12-month goals. And I'm going to give her permission to dream and not think about, well, what's realistic is. I want to give her permission to dream about, hey, what would excite her? What would thrill her to see happen 12 months from now? Then we're going to work backwards and go, okay, what about 6 months? What about 3 months? What about next week? So what I'm doing with you guys today is great. May 15th, Shannon, if you have 5 clients enrolled. So if you want 5 clients enrolled in the next 4 weeks, on average, that's about 1 client a week. What needs to happen in the next 7 days? So what specific action or step would you make in the next week by either Monday, and this is for you to get clear on, it could either be Monday or next Thursday, that would help you aggressively work towards that goal? And I say the word aggressively just because you want to notice if you're choosing comfortable things. My invitation is to pick a bold commitment. And let's see if I can erase this.
And I even like sometimes to think of what would be the next small step for me to take in the next 24 hours.
Yep.
Just to create some sort of momentum and action. Because if I know oftentimes, oh, I want to take that step by Monday, Sunday night, you'll find me fairly active.
Yep. I'm writing like a 2-year-old here. That's okay. 10, 1. Great. So what's a small step? I think in the next 24 hours is a version of a bold commitment to me, because it invites you to what's something I can do now? What's something I can do in the next 24 hours? Oftentimes when I'm talking to people, they'll say, oh yeah, I'll do that next week. And it's like, well, what would it take to do in the next hour? Or what could you do in the next even 30 minutes? And it's often interesting to see the steps that are available to us that we don't see, right? So I would rate then, as you're writing down your commitments, where would you rate that on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being bold, 1 being like, easy peasy. And the same with requests. Like, what request can you make in the next week? And this is where people usually rate themselves low, because oftentimes we're afraid to ask for help. We're afraid to bring other people in. So where would you rate any requests that you can make on a scale of 1 to 10? Great. So 5 conversations per day with Shannon. Love that. What are some other commitments you guys can make before Monday or before next Thursday? Let's put them out there. And then one other thought about the bold request or bold commitment. So this is an example with a client I had where he was he's writing a screenplay. And an example of a bold commitment is, I'm going to have, 10 pages done in the next week. And the reason it was bold for him, it was like a 9 or a 10, was because he'd never done that. So that's a version of bold. An example of a bold request was asking for feedback to his friend who happens to know a Hollywood director that's known for making big Hollywood blockbusters. So this was a 10 on a bold request for him because it was scary. Like, what if his friend says no? What if his friend says, who do you think you are? What if his friend says, I'm not going to because I don't think you're a good writer, right? So it's bold if there's a bold request, if there's a possibility for a who do you think you are? So oftentimes that's how I rate on a scale of 1 to 10 bold request. Anna, write a list of everything the website is still missing next 24 hours. In 1 week, uploaded all products and product descriptions. Great, love that. And then Amanda, doing my walk to run program every single day for the next 7 days. Love it.
Which that actually, from our coaching session yesterday within our firm, which I'm so grateful for this space. So that's a bold commitment for me because it's been something that has been a resistance in my life for a really long time. So to push through that, I think speaks to myself and my level of commitment on a whole larger level, not just with that, and building that trust within myself through working my integrity. I know leak into other areas of my life. The bold request was to our coaching squad and our group to not use the coaching space for like, hey, let's examine the gaps, but to maybe do a little bit different and to use it as a space for celebration, which isn't necessarily oftentimes how we use the coaching space as like, is this okay? Are they going to think that it's okay? Are they going to judge it? And it's like, no, that actually is what's going to be most resourceful for me to help me get my commitment done. So we're doing that. So yeah, requests can look all sorts of different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's for you to rate, right? So for one person, something might not be bold. For you or for someone else, it might be incredibly bold. So it's for you to check in with yourself. So I'm never going to impose commitments on my clients because it's for their own empowerment to choose and to pick what it is that they're committed to. Any other commitments we have, something that you're committed to do, a step that you're committed to take that's very measurable by either Monday on the next webinar that you can I would invite you to commit to celebrating it on our call on Monday if you come back to our next webinar and saying in the chat, hey, I did that thing. So what's something that you can commit to by Monday, the next webinar? Yeah, that would be fun. Just pushing it down the funnel of specificity. How can we get specific? Now, for all these commitments, here's how I want to invite you to think of them. I'd love for you to think of them as commitments, not as things you're going to try to do, not as things that you want to do, right? Great, Hannah, 10. But as something that you're saying both to yourself and to even us in this room, hey, I am committed to it, meaning come hell or high water, I'm committed to making these happen. And how, in my opinion, the metaphor I love to use for integrity, so I think of integrity like this big old empty glass jar. And every time I do something I say I'm going to do, it's like putting a marble in that jar. And so oftentimes I'll have a client who says, Janet, I want you to coach me to help me have more confidence or to have more self-assurance. I say, great. We're going to increase the levels to which that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. Because part of creating confidence and momentum in your life is adding another marble to the jar. Every time you do what you say you're going to do, you're filling up that jar. And the more that you put in there, the bolder commitments that you can make, because there's a little voice inside your head that says, yep, you're totally going to do that because you're someone who does what you say you're going to do. So part of it is just creating commitments, not just to do the thing. So the commitment, Hannah, for creating those testimonials is going to be powerful, not just because of how that will be a resource for you hitting your goal, but it will be powerful as a way of increasing your levels of internal integrity, which will in turn create momentum, which will in turn create confidence. Any thoughts around that, Amanda?
Yeah, the foundation to creating confidence in yourself begins with keeping your word to yourself and others. And I think I find myself oftentimes, I don't know if anybody else would be this way, commitment averse, where I don't want to make a commitment to myself, or I don't want to make a commitment to others because I have this fear of either not keeping it, or I actually historically have a belief within myself that I probably won't. And so I hold back from making the commitment. So I think what I've learned is that in making more commitments, and here's another thing, when you make more commitments, either to yourself or other people, do you think that the breaking of commitments is going to increase or decrease? Probably increase, right? Yes. The more commitments you make, the likelihood of those broken commitments are going to increase, which, and to even expand the version of, or the definition of integrity just a little bit, it's doing what you say you're going to do. And it's as soon as you know that you are not going to be doing what you say you're going to do, to let the appropriate parties know and to clean up your mess.
Yeah, that's good.
So it is, there's, I really appreciate that expanded version too, not in that it like lets me off the hook, but it really opens up, what does it look like for me to be a woman of my word everywhere and everything, to myself and to others.
Yep, absolutely. I love that. And that's, if we had more time, I love that piece of it. What does it look like then to, in those moments, as soon as your conscious is alerted that you're not going to be able to fulfill that commitment, what does it look like to still stay in integrity to that by speaking up? Because oftentimes what we just do is we just let the time go by and then we go, well, I guess I didn't do it. There's almost like a kind of a resignation. And then in that moment, there's a little chip off of our trust, our self-trust.
Another question I like to ask is, and I'll do this with my kids, I'll do this with clients, what are you going to do to maintain your fidelity? Like, if this is the commitment, then what actions am I going to take to make sure that I keep that commitment to myself? So my kid says, I'm going to wash the dishes by 9 p.m. Great. What's your plan for maintaining your fidelity in that? Making sure I'm going to set an alarm with Alexa. Fantastic. That's great. So that's another question oftentimes that I'll use to help me build the integrity muscle.
That's so good. And the last example I use as we close, because I believe we're done at 45, is when I'm working with a client and there's the, oh, well, I forgot, or I got distracted, or I'm, I was in my own head and I didn't realize, and so I was late, right? Let's say that's the broken commitment. We'll talk about, and we got this from another coach in the firm, actually. I'll ask them how many flights that they've ever missed in their life. And usually it's 0, 1, or one time I heard 2. And what's fun about that is to notice that if there's stakes involved, if there's high stakes, so when you purchase a flight, it's very rare. I don't think I've ever missed a flight. And the reason is because of the stakes that are involved. It's annoying to miss a flight, right? It costs money. It's inconvenient. It's anxiety. What's that? Embarrassing, right? And so when I know I have a flight on Saturday at 4 p.m., I am navigating the whole rest of my week leading up to that to make sure that I am not going to miss that flight, right? So in other words, it's not about forgetting. I forgot my flight just took off, right? So forgetting can even be a little bit of a bullshit reason or a bullshit response to a broken commitment. It just means that I didn't put it up high enough as a priority. And so one of the things to pay attention to in the next 24 hours as you hit your commitments in the next few days before Monday in the next week is to pay attention to your bullshit meter. What are the cons? What's the bullshit that you tell yourself that will prevent you from doing those things that you say you're going to do? And to just notice those. Don't judge it, right? It's not about being bad or good or right or wrong. It's to just notice what are the things or the stories you tell yourself to let yourself off the hook, and where else does that show up in your life? So I'm going to wrap it up and then let people go because I want to honor everyone's time. I'll stay for, actually, I have about 10 more minutes for anyone who wants to stay, ask any other questions. I'm here. Amanda, I don't know if you have any extra time. Did you have, and no worries if not. Okay, cool. So we'll stay a little bit longer. And Samaria, you can feel free to wrap it up and let people know about the next one.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for joining. The recording of the session will be on our IG and YouTube tomorrow, and we'll send a little reminder tomorrow also to come back and join us for the last session, which Fatima will lead on empowered and disempowered language on Monday. But yeah, we'll stay behind for about 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes if everyone has any last minute questions. And yeah, thanks for coming.
Bye everyone.
Val, you had a great question. Do you have a minute to stay on? Where's Val? Is he? Okay. How often do you find people using the request as a way to seek validation or a way out? So just to get curious around that question, like they're looking for like somebody to like rescue them, like that kind of. Yeah, I don't know about how often, but I think that I would look more in myself. Like, am I making a request to have someone bail me out, or am I using my request to continue to let myself off the hook, or am I using my request to actually look at where my resources are that I wasn't seeing up until now?
Yeah.
It's about being resourceful and looking to what my another phrase that we'll say around here is helping people ask for what they want.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of times I want something. I would say probably more I find the passive aggressive type stuff of like trying to get somebody to read my mind. But the more empowered place is making a bold request for what it is that I would like. And here's the thing with requests too. When I make a request, I don't find it's like people aren't obligated to say yes or no, or to say yes. It's like, you're a grown adult or you're your own separate person. So here is the request. You can say yes, you can say no, or you can negotiate. It's a fantastic, I think when there is a freedom in the relationship and an understanding that just because I make the request doesn't mean there's this obligation to say yes. I think the requests flow a lot more freely and become more bold because there isn't this codependent obligation that is underlying the requests.
That's really good. Val, does that answer your question? Awesome. Okay. Well, I assume that's a...
Yes, it was very helpful.
Awesome. Cool. Shannon asked a good question. What are some best practices to breaking commitments to self and how to clean up that mess? I'd be curious what you say, Amanda, but for me, there's actually, I had an old coach who taught me this breakdown process, which is basically 4 steps, which is acknowledging the broken commitment. So that's the first thing, because oftentimes we don't even get to that step. There's almost like an avoidance or, oh, it's fine, or it didn't happen.
Getting out of denial.
Say that again?
Getting out of denial.
Yeah, getting out of denial. So acknowledging the broken commitment. 2 is take responsibility, right? So that can look different in different scenarios. But taking responsibility could be bringing it up to the person. So let's say I'm late to a call with Amanda, and it's like, hey, I want to acknowledge I broke this commitment. How did that impact you? So exploring your impact, really. And there's a lot more possibility in there. If it's to myself, let's say I said I'm going to go run in the morning and then I don't. It's acknowledging that with myself, taking the moment, going, okay, I didn't do that thing. I acknowledge that. I wonder, like getting curious, what got in my way, exploring that. Sometimes I bring it up to a coach. Hey, I want to out myself. I broke a commitment to myself. Get really curious. And then an important step, which is kind of a nebulous one, and I feel like it's different people have different thoughts around this, but is to forgive myself. I feel like there's different schools of thought with that. Some people will say that's impossible. You can't forgive yourself, yada, yada. I think the real thing is exactly what Amanda just said, is be nice to yourself. Say, all right. Like I've literally out loud sometimes said to myself, I forgive you, Janet. You did that thing. And so, yeah, send away the offense. And then the fourth thing is to make a new commitment. And again, we usually don't get to this step. There's kind of like, oh, I didn't do it. Oh, I guess I'm not going to do it. Well, and then we kind of spiral into this kind of negative self-talk area versus, all right, I did that thing. What happened? Take responsibility. I forgive myself. Now, what's my new commitment? And what am I going to do to make sure this time that I put myself on the hook? Does that answer, Shannon, the question? Okay, cool. Awesome. Is there any other questions that popped up that I didn't see? From Sarah, how do you manage your own expectations by not making too many bold commitments, but still aiming high? That is a great question. Yeah, well, I think the short answer is, one, thinking, like, let's just even say for the next week. And you're like, I don't know how many commitments is too many, right? It's like, do I make 5? Do I make 10? I don't know. Use this next week as kind of a laboratory to be, it's not a bad thing to break a commitment, by the way. So I think that's important to say. Integrity is important, but breaking a commitment can actually also be a way of growing. In fact, we say around the firm, I think, Amanda, you were about to say, we actually love broken commitments because that's actually how we grow. So go ahead.
Yeah, and commitments, a lot of times people think that the primary reason for making a commitment is to keep it, which that's true. And the other reason that we make commitments is to grow. Like if you think about marriage vows, I will love you always, love and cherish forever. Like those types of vows, like that's like, we're going to be honest, like the truth, it's, I will love, honor, and cherish you 75% of the time, 60% when your mom's in town. So if we're going to be honest about it. And so I think that there's setting commitments that are larger even than what we know we are capable of keeping, because they invite us into greater areas of growth for ourselves. They inspire us into something more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the big thing, Sarah, is having bring someone into the space with you to get curious with you when there is a broken commitment, and with zero judgment, right? Zero judgment, zero shame, just like, all right, I wonder what got in the way of me doing those things. Do I need to course correct? Right? Like I made an aggressive commitment to do this was 6 months ago, like to do yoga every day. And then after a couple of weeks of breaking that, I was like, okay, what got in the way there? Maybe that's not what I'm committed to. And so I got curious first before recommitting. What's the course correct? Yeah.
Yeah. And I like, instead of saying I made too many commitments, I have to make competing commitments. And so in the broken commitment, it helps me to realize where there was a misalignment. So I said yes, that I wasn't really committed, but I said yes because I wanted to please whoever I said yes to, or I create competing commitments. So then it helps me to get clear, okay, what actually am I committed to? If I'm committed to being a person in my word, and it brings a lot of clarity for me in the commitments that I'm making.
Yeah. And that could be a whole nother 2-hour webinar where we could process through a broken commitment, which is one of my favorite things ever. Is when I break a commitment, there's a process we take our clients through. Samira, you've been through this. You can probably speak to it. Where we explore, hey, what got in the way? What's the bullshit? What was I actually more committed to? And there's like these survival needs that we tend to have that were actually more important than doing a thing we said we were going to do. And oftentimes it reveals a pattern where it shows up in multiple areas in our life. And that's why when a client is 1 minute late to a call. And at first they're like, what's the big deal? I was 1 minute late. And then we go through this process and we find out that there's some sort of pattern or system that's actually showing up in every other area of their life that has nothing to do with the 1 minute late. And that could be the most powerful growth. What if a bold request is rejected? How do you adapt, come up with another bold request? Great question. There's actually a great, Fatima, Samira can maybe lend you the book called One Small Step at a Time. They talk in there about how maybe how rejection isn't a real thing, which of course is a bold statement, but I love how he breaks it down in there. So I'd be curious, you know, how you're relating to rejection, or if someone says no. If it's just the second question, how do you come up with another bold request? Actually, Amanda, do you have any thoughts around that one? Because I could go on a tangent, but I don't want to. I don't want to go on a tangent on rejection just yet. You probably have a better way of answering that question.
Well, I do think it's like, so that is, to me, it's like a negotiation type realm. Again, did they say absolutely no? I think like as in terms of a parent, when my kids ask me for a bold request, it's like sometimes it's no, but sometimes then the request could be, hey, would you be willing to think about it? Or what would you be willing to do?
That's
or right. how would you be willing to help? And then they might say, oh, actually, I would be willing to do this. Great. I think it's always coming at it from an empowered place. I think that stance, and we'll talk about that next time, I think, but it's whatever stance you're in, it's staying in that empowered place of, okay, great, now what? Okay, great, now what? Okay, great, now what?
Does exploring broken commitment stem back to how you said it in the first place? Yeah, absolutely. I think that's when we talked about like patterns, oftentimes we can explore, hey, where else do I overcommit? Like, where else do I make commitments because I thought someone wanted me to make that commitment? Yeah, thanks. One small step can change your life. So oftentimes there is some sort of thing, some learning that can be had from how we even made the commitment in the first place. That's a pattern for me. Oftentimes I will make commitments because I think I'm supposed to, or I really should make this commitment because it's the right thing to do. And then I'll break it and I'll go, why did I make this commitment in the first place? What was really going on there? And I'll explore where else that shows up in my life. So I think that's it. Any other questions? All right. Well, you guys are awesome. Thank you for being here. Looking forward to Monday, and feel free to email me as well, Janet at novus.global, or you can ask Samira for my email if you have any follow-up questions. And yeah, looking forward to seeing some of you back on Monday. Feel free to invite others, and reach out to Samira to ask her about what she does. She's doing some incredible offers right now with to support businesses. So definitely reach out.